I mean, you always wish you knew now.
Yeah.
We could have done it better. Yeah, we could have, like.
I think the regrets. No, not. Yeah,
not regrets.
Say, no. The only regret I would have had if we didn't do it.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell! I've just realised I hate this.
Oh, you hate this?
Yeah.
It was interesting because there was it was a different sort of band. But if we wrote some good songs, that we didn't release something that there's a record now of Airstrike somewhere that you could say, like Dave's band, The Exponents. Like people who've got those classic songs they'll always remember. Airstrike, there's a lot of people out there in the North Island particularly, and South Island, but mostly in the North Island, that will be older now and will remember Airstrike, but they haven't got anything to show for it, and there's nothing down on record anywhere. Just
Which is one of the good reasons of this gig.
Yeah, that's why this gig is really good, because now we can revisit it. We can get back together. We can, and we'll have it. Over 35 years later.
I'm looking for a guy. Oh, no, I don't know him. You don't want to know him.
Only came about an hour or two ago, wanting to fucking sheep up, that's all.
Oh, right, yeah. Might be a shot there. Is he alright?
I'll do
Yeah.
it. I'll do it.
Hey?
I'll do it.
Sound check.
No, we're all over.
We're all over that. We're going to do that. But can you do when you come on a piano thing in the chords, just you and the piano, and we'll just sit around that for a bit.
Yeah.
And
What is the jam thing or just?
No, the jam. Just you. Just a nice little concerto. And then
Technology might roll. There it is.
and you can put a low synth thing on it or something, start with a low synth thing and then just a piano thing, and then it'll just sit there for a while. We'll get comfortable with the stage.
Yeah.
We'll get comfortable with the sound. Paul can do a little jam or whatever, and then
Have you got a kajang?
No, I haven't actually all out of there.
Fresh out of the kajang.
They're not getting the good jam.
then I'll count in good night, and we'll do good night.
It's been said that the next band, and they can start coming on from now, I think, with the setup. Just, yep, cool. It has been said that this band were the loudest touring band in New Zealand in 1980. Now, here we go. I'll just tell you a bit about them while they do that last bit of setup, and then we're in for a real treat. The band are a group of mates from Invercargill that went on the road in '79 touring New Zealand and Australia. But they would also rather be known as the hardest working band at the time. That between January and December 1980 they played 245 gigs. The 3 songs they'll play tonight were written during that time when the lads were aged around 20 years old, like some of you guys out there, I do know. So they are written mostly about life on the road, things that occupied their minds at the time. What's pointed about these 3 songs is that it was the studio recordings of them that propelled the move to Australia and a publishing deal with CBS. This lineup tonight is almost all the original band, which is really cool, except for the bass player, lovely Burnsy. Neil Burns, who died 20 years ago, but the boys are delighted to have David in, so from the exponents to help them out on bass tonight. And I'm not sure, are you going to tell a story about just your trip? Good, well I'll just do it here, just while you're coming on, when you're set. Great, lovely. They went out and saw Burnsy today at his grave, and they all stood around and they all talked with him about their time as a band. So that's 30 years ago. They haven't played these songs in 37 years, but they hope you'll enjoy this moment as much as they will. Old mates who get to go back in time just for a moment, just one more time, to truly celebrate 30 years of this wonderful show. And I'm checking, are you guys set? Let's bring them on. Give it up for Airstrike.
Hit it, Louis.
The band was interesting because it had 3 Neils in it. Had my brother, the vocalist, we called him Wally. There was the keyboard player, Neil Sutherland, we called him Sutho, and Neil Burns on bass, so we called him Burnsy. We had to use those nicknames because, Graham and I, we would call out the name Neil and everybody would answer, so it was imperative we had the nicknames. Eventually Graham left the band and Paul arrived, and I had the idea at the time that we should call ourselves Peter, Paul and Neil, but that didn't go down very well. The thing is that at the time all these outside influences were telling us that we had to, change our music or write commercial shit, or because we was an interesting band, Airstrike, because we had Neil, who had this huge voice, but he wasn't like a heavy metal band singer. No. He had huge range, and we had like a rhythm section, which we weren't, we weren't the type of musicians that like some guys who, had all their chops and could do fancy shit. We were just like meat and potatoes rhythm section. But it was a driving rhythm section, and it was powerful, and we were tight as a duck's ass. We were. Like when I hit my kick drum, Neil was right there, and it was just always powerful. And then Paul's guitar, which was just huge, and he used to get these massive sounds out of it, like, didn't you? Like you just used to get like a wall of sound, and we had with the PA and everything as well, of course. And Neil Sutherland, who was the melody maker, like beautiful pianist.
You've got a lot of gear.
Oh, but you need it.
You do.
Kind of evolved, didn't it, from another band in the late 70s. Memory's not as good as I thought it would be. Are we gonna?
Pass. Pass. I don't remember. But you're going to find with all these questions you ask me that everyone else is going to remember and I'm not going to remember.
That's cool. Sorry, what was the question? We got interest from an Auckland promoter, Benny Levin.
Yeah, so Airstrike when it started, yeah. Basically it was, we had a band in Invercargill. We had a band, and we actually used to play regularly at the Musicians Club on a Friday night. We were mostly doing covers really, but not really writing anything original. But there was a promoter in town, Benny Levin, and he was travelling through, and for some reason he was invited along to the Musicians Club, and we just happened to be playing there. And so Benny, but he was he liked us immediately.
So we waited another year, and he booked work from Invercargill all the way to Auckland. 79, December 79.
We couldn't. We were working day jobs. We couldn't just do it straight away. But eventually, it might have been months later, we decided we were going to do it. And our band at the time, they didn't like our name. And they said, you need to come up with a new name, and we'd been thinking about names and we couldn't come up with one either. Like, it was one of the things that we were terrible at, getting band names. So they came up with the name Airstrike and booked us from basically Timaru, first gig I think. No, it might have been Balclutha. And right up to Auckland, and we just played the brewery circuit, which you did in those days. You just played a week in a pub and travelled on a Sunday, and then we went all the way to Auckland, where Benny came down in his Mercedes-Benz and met us in Hamilton, I think. And yeah, and from there we went to Auckland. But that was basically, Airstrike was formed because of Benny Levin, really. New Music Management was the company. Craig Scott was his partner.
Well, the gigs were booked by our agent, and he would send us a itinerary every 3 months or so of where we were booked. But I liaised with Benny Levin, who booked the work initially.
Alright, Benny.
Yeah, Levin.
There's some colourful language. He was an interesting man. Yeah. He was very, very camp. I think he was interested in Neil. I think. I'm sure you've got that from everybody else.
Similar, but different.
Yeah.
Because we got rid of Benny Levin, our then manager, who was asking for far too much money. I think it was 35%. He took 35% off the top of your earnings, and then he took 12% because of the booking fee. That's what we thought. So he'd set us up in this house in Manukau. How we paid the rent, I don't know, but so we decided to escape in the dead of night. We had a new bus, we stripped it down, we stacked all the shelving in the driveway of this rented property, and in the foggy dead of night we slipped out of Auckland and went down to Hamilton and got a new manager, Chris Cole, and that was it. We never spoke to Benny Levin again.
The thing to remember, we've halved the first and good night we've halved, and in starting to show. So it's just a short round with the chorus, and then moves on.
So the first chorus in both those songs?
Both those songs we've halved.
Just one track?
Yeah. We're short. It's like your gun's going off, mate.
Yeah, at that time we had another guitarist, Graham Moses. We took him with us. Don't think he stayed with us very many months. Wasn't his thing.
Oh, I think I met a couple of guys. Oh, I did actually meet a couple of guys at a party. Yeah. It was Peter and Neil and Chris, yeah. So from there,
Hastings, right?
eh?
In Hastings.
In Nathan, anyway, yeah. I was going to join, about to join another band, and who Chris the roadie knew the guy. And then their guitarist, some disappeared in a garden accident or something. Something happened. He left the band, and yeah, I went and played with him and that. And, yeah, basically, here I am sitting with him now.
We had a playthrough.
We did. We had a quick playthrough down at local, or where I lived, the town I lived in Havelock, that's right, yeah. We had a playthrough there. And that was pretty good, so yeah. The decision was made pretty much on the spot, and we're on the bus to New Plymouth, yeah? Yeah.
First gig.
Yeah. Yeah, we just started gigging, touring on the road.
Something like that.
Yeah, pretty much straight off. I had a couple of songs that we learnt straight away when I joined the band. And then I sat down with the keyboard player Neil, and him and I just went through all the stuff that they were doing at that time. Because we only had a couple of days, I think 3 days before we were playing the actual gig. And then after that, I guess the principal writers were Neil, or you have to say, I have to say, like Salo, Wally, and they would have ideas and bring them into that, and then we'd all contribute to them and stuff. So yeah, and I'd write other stuff and bring it to them. So yeah, it was quite a lot.
Fuck it, I forgot that break. But anyway, I'm not playing guitar tomorrow, I won't make any difference.
Are we doing this stop through the whole
Yeah, steps. So from the where would that come from?
first half of the verse?
So do the lead break.
So, see what you think. Give me listen to it when we were doing it.
It's hard to know without the bass.
It is, isn't
Yeah.
it?
But it doesn't feel odd to me.
It feels right. Like,
So I'm trying to think about first gig. My God, I can't remember what the first gig was. Did anyone else remember?
Oh yeah, I mean there was lots of memorable gigs. The stories of Fair Strike are fantastic stories, really, if we can all remember them, and most of us can't because we were there, you know. But I remember it was for me anyway, it was memorable, not for good reasons, but we were playing. We were playing around, and we were really doing a lot of gigging, and we had to go to Auckland to do some demos, and we needed demos because we were looking at going to Australia, and we had to produce some good quality demos. And at this stage, the music was 90% original by now, and we were just, you know, we did one or two covers, but we would do it our own way. So we had to go to Auckland, and when you were in a recording studio, you did night recording because the rates were, you know, so much cheaper. In the daytime, we couldn't afford those rates. So we drove all the way to Auckland, did a night recording, did 3 songs. It actually is, I think, the 3 songs that we're going to be playing at this gig this week, tomorrow. And we demoed them. And then, no sleep. Got in our Country Library Service bus, drove, it's not far, but drove back to Hamilton. And whoever was, you know, not driving got to sleep probably, but in the back. But we got all the way back to Hamilton. Had to instantly set up for a gig that night. So, you know, we didn't really have, you know, bugger all sleep. And I think we were in the motel room maybe an hour before the gig, and I was shagged. And, you know, I used to put everything into the drums, you know, and I was just complaining about it. I was just going, oh, you know, I'm fucked. And a guy we knew who kind of was involved in some chemistry set stuff produced some like a white powder that just kind of like we used to call it Go Fast, and I had some of this, and I just went, well, he came in and said, this is what you need. Okay, right, I'm not going to argue. So had this, and I was just like, yes, I can go and do this gig now. Fantastic. I was like a different person, you know. And so we went, and first set was amazing. First set was fantastic. Maybe halfway through the second set, I think we did 3 sets. Big sets, though, long sets. And the pub, the Hillcrest, was packed because it was quite a more popular there at the time, you know, for the surfers and sort of university students. Absolutely going off. And they used to really pack it in those days, like you would put more people in the pub than was like legal probably, and so yeah, so you know, we were like, Paul and I were laughing about the story before, but anyway, so I had this stuff, and halfway through the second set, I started to cramp up. Like I was really struggling, and at the end of that second set, I said to the guys, look, I can hardly hold my sticks and even my legs, because like I think what the speed did, with, you know, the go fast, wasn't it? Cool. Like the go fast, what it did is it took your reserves and anything that you have in reserves in case you need it, it soaked that up, and that's what gave you the thing. So when that was gone, you had nothing. You were flat, and I had a whole other set, and you know, to go, and I just couldn't hold the stick. So I went down to the bar and got a jug full of orange juice and got the barman to fill it with salt, because I thought salt would do it, you know. And I got the salt, and I was just going, and you know, it just made me more thirsty, you know. But I got this down, and then started the last set, and I was just like crippled, you know. The sticks were just like, and I could hardly hit. And the guys are looking around at me going, what the fuck's going on here? And you know, like we just were just creeping along to get to the end of that night. And at the end, that was it. I was absolutely over. I couldn't hold anything. I was just like, I've never had it before. I probably could have done the gig better if I hadn't had that. Thanks, AK. You know, it was a great idea. Was I the only one
What?
that had that?
Oh, hardly, son.
Hardly. Right, I wasn't the only one, but
No.
it was the one that affected.
We weren't as physical as you were.
No.
We were just, you know.
Oh yeah, the old guitarist, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
looking cool. Yeah. You know, swanning around.
How you doing, Eric?
Yeah. The bass player, you know, eyeing up the talent for later on, eh? But the drummer's kind of like crippled up and like an old man. He's just, and there's no finesse. There's no paradiddles. Couldn't do a paradiddle.
They left after the first set.
Anyway, so that's the memory I have of my most. It's not my most memorable gig, but it was just a shocker. And you know, Paul will tell you, there's plenty of others that I had experiences too.
So the thing before the starting the show, that's not, you don't really want a piano thing, that's more like a synth thing.
Yeah.
Wash.
Yeah,
Bit of wash.
Bit of wash. But I want to just have
Keyboard kajang.
You
I want to
give us a watch,
showcase.
I'll give you a kajang.
I just want to showcase your piano thing. And first up could be really nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure I got all my kit. Shit, that's hot out there. Well, when we left town, we were in this, I don't know what the hell it was. There was a contraption that had been modified, this truck that had this canopy put on the back of it, and it was painted on, I don't know how many different colours. But the configuration of the gearbox, because of the modification, it kept blowing gearboxes. So we didn't have that for very long. And actually it was Wally Chilton came up, he was on business, and he found this school library bus, Bedford Library, silver. And we had to strip it down, take all the shelving out of it. I'll answer the second question first. Their biggest following was definitely, if I can, you know, change things, mix it up a bit, was the Hillcrest in Hamilton, Hillcrest Tavern. That was by far our biggest following. It was a university pub, and they just loved us. My favourite place to play would have been the Cabana Hotel in Napier, just because of the old hotel. We got to stay there for a week. It's on the beach, and people loved us there too. Whenever we played there, we packed it out, didn't we? Yes, old lady Charlie ran it with two fluffy dogs.
and of course the Cabana, because I came from that area. So it was one of those pubs there that when you were growing up in bands, that was like the holy grail to play the Cabana, you know. If you played the Cabana, well, you know, yeah, it's cool. It's one of the top gigs there. All the bands played there, the big bands.
Yeah, the Hillcrest Tavern, I remember that we probably played to about maybe, I don't know, 1,500 people all squished into a really small, you know, pub. It was like an unbelievable atmosphere, and we would pack that out 4 nights in a row. That was probably my favourite gig. I actually really liked Hamilton. That was a good place to be. Just get a
In New Zealand, probably like Neil said, I don't know, there was quite a few of them. Lady H, Hillcrest, all around the Hamilton area.
I remember setting up in a club in Paddington. I think it was called Brownies, and that a dog had crapped on the stage. For the security guy's dog had crapped on the stage. I thought that must be why they call it Brownies. Not because somebody was baking out the back.
We only needed one because he was super round. He did the sound, he did the lights, he lugged, and then occasionally it seemed like every other week his wages would drop because he'd do something, and Neil Burns would say, all right, that's it, your wages are dropped for that. Don't know what he used to do. But he was a guy that if you fell out with him, you'd find your leather pants missing. And Neil Burns was always a step ahead of him. And he'd think like him. He'd get up into the ceiling space. Sure enough, here's the leathers, ripped right down the middle.
Down the crotch.
Cheers, Petey. It's good to see you, buddy. Been many years, eh? Long time since bloody Airstrike broke up. I think a lot about Burnsy, eh? You know, he's I wish he could be around to see all this come out. But he's watching over it all, thinking, do it right, guys. Eh?
He will be, buddy. He will be. I mean,
he makes sure it's a clean stage.
I mean, wasn't he fanatical about that, which was good? A blacked out stage, that a really good, tidy blacked out stage.
Yeah, I'd put side drops and the black, and we'd have the drum riser. And I'm not sure if we had the drum riser blacked out as well, because we had to nail it down.
We had a skirt round it. We had a staple gun, but we never had black carpet, and was the problem. If we'd had black carpet, it would have been perfect.
But we still had to nail your kit down. And
because we had polythene, so we put polythene.
No, it's because you were hitting the drums too hard, man. You're a powerhouse, man.
I had a rock in the bloody kick drum. Do you remember that? We used to carry a rock round, and it was taped in the kick drum.
It actually made the kick drum sound better, eh? Do you remember I used to have your snare mic'd up from the top and bottom?
Yeah.
Hey, it gave it that snap, hey. Do you ever think, and I've always thought this, right, if I hadn't cut Neil's jacket up, and if I'd gone over there and taken all that lighting with me, and we'd just gone as how we were, I think it would have been different. But it was a whole different ball game over there when it comes to like bang, 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 bang.
Well, you were doing
set up for a whole week.
You were doing one nighters, mate.
It's like, and
you know, you needed a full crew. It wasn't. You couldn't go to one super roadie.
Yeah. Oh, I gave it my shot though. But Airstrike had a lot of good music. I still listen to a lot of it. Eh?
Yeah.
Neil sent me a lot.
Yeah. And then later on, Cam Shah as well. You know, there's a lot of good stuff from that band as well.
Yeah.
Like I was at the wedding. I remember.
He's came to.
We came to the wedding, buddy.
He's were the only band that I invited, mate.
I know.
You know.
It was good.
Yous were closer to me than any band, mate. I mean, I lived with you guys in Addington. I mean, in
Annandale.
Yeah. Didn't even have a job when I got off the plane, did I?
No.
Oh well. I picked up to it pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Kensington, that helps.
Yeah.
For barbecues and stuff, you know.
Cool. Come over here, darling. Back for me.
It's Valentine's Day, mate. Everybody will be
Sunday, man.
tomorrow.
I got stood up by this chick the other night, bitch.
Really?
Yeah, she doesn't matter. You're recording. Turn it off now, Pete.
Why are you going to say something?
Oh,
Tell
just
us.
wanna- Okay.
So,
The best way
yeah,
to get a girl into your room,
when you're a roadie, like or anybody,
well, even if you're a band member or say I've got some brilliant photos of the best bands that you probably love and you'd like to see, would you like to come and have a look at them? Well, where are they? Oh, up in my room, you know.
I've got a whole album full of photos.
And get them in there and open the minibar and hey, have a drink. It's like get them through and they start drooling. But I had a few climbing through the window at the cabana. Remember that chick? They come through and I'm boinking that blonde girl. And she had actually come from Hastings, mate. And she came up the fire escape and missed us playing. And she falls on the bed. Do you remember the cop that fell on you? At
The cop?
Yeah, at the Hamilton Hotel. After me and
Oh,
Neil
you ran away.
Chilton, he was looking for me all night. And he came through the window when you were boinking Michelle. Bolting over all these fences. And this
You were
thing,
gone, mate. You were
He
running.
came after me.
He did. You
I
were
was
running like
flipping
you
off my
man
nut.
possessed.
I've been stoned, and this guy came up, you little shit, and he's jumping over these fences, and I'm going over, and
He never got you, did he?
no, I went over this last one after I'd hit about 9 houses, like boom, 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 and he's following me after the Hillcrest Tavern, comes out of the car park, and next minute I see this barbed wire. I'm just about to jump down onto this corrugated iron and barbed wire, and so I dive off to the right, and there's this caravan there, and I roll under it, and I heard him come over and hit all the corrugated.
He never saw you.
I know you're in the yard, eh? And I'm trying not to keep my breathing. I'm trying to keep my breathing down. My heart's jumping in my chest. It's like, oh fuck, he's gonna find me. Eh? He's angry. He didn't. Eh? I stayed under there for about an hour. Eh? In that same street, there was those two girls that used to come and see the band. What were their names? They had a flat in that side street where the Hillcrest Tavern was. Anyway, I went to their place and I stayed there till like 8 in the morning, and then came back, and then you told me, oh, a cop's came through our window, climbed through and fell on me and Michelle. So yeah, once you're in there by 9, otherwise there'll be a warrant out for you, and you know she Chris.
Yeah, well, they took Neil.
So I got a $150 fine and convicted of marijuana, so that wasn't too bad. I could have been done for escaping from custody, but he hadn't arrested me at that stage.
The worst part about it was the reels got busted the same night.
They were in the next unit, and they smelled of the
They
pot
thought it
going
was.
on.
They thought it was our room, and they went in and
Yeah, and they busted a whole lot.
a whole lot of them.
Okay, you guys, let's lay it down. Something fierce.
That's right.
Okay, Burnsy.
Yeah, he would, wouldn't
Yeah. He's a good bass player. I thought he was.
he? A driving bass player, solid.
Yeah.
He had a great sound. He had a chunky, really, because he'd play with the pick, you know.
Yeah.
And it was.
Did he always play with the pick?
He always played with the pick, so it was always like a punchy pick noise. Like he would hit it really hard. And to get that sound, you had to play like him. Like you couldn't get it from fingers. Part of his like that's starting to show bass sound.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that song when you were talking about that.
Yeah. That's because he was hitting that string. Yeah.
Because we did a lot of gigs and a lot of driving.
Yeah.
We were going from like Napier to bloody Gisborne, to New Plymouth.
Yeah.
Going from New Plymouth to Whangarei, but it was only like once a week, which was pretty good.
It was fantastic. I mean, you could not get better life for a young band.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. We'd sunbake all day and go to the beach, and pick up women at swimming pools and try and chat up girls and shops to come and see us tonight. Come and see us, we'll make you rock for the night. Yeah, and we got a few too, eh? I mean, there was no internet around back then, eh? It was like, it just...
Should know.
You had to go on radio when you got into town.
Yeah.
And Neil did go on radio a few times,
Yes,
eh?
mate.
To places, eh?
We'll do it properly.
The world needs to know about this band. And yeah, he's a bloody good man.
Well, thanks, Chris. Well, you know, you were part of it. You know, like for all the, you know, there's always sort of shit that goes down with any band. It's hard work.
You should have hung in more, mate. If you just hung in a bit longer, eh? I know it was hard, eh? Australia would eat a lot of bands and spit them out back then.
And I remember one time, Peter, you pissed him off and found your blue polka dot t-shirt rammed down the toilet.
My favourite.
So, you know, you do things like that, and that's right, okay, you're not getting paid this week. He loved us and he stayed with us, he was family.
Well, there's lots of interesting stories that don't concern other bands. It probably concerns one band, but... And, one that comes to mind is, no, it doesn't. I just said that because he couldn't think of one. I missed out on the bus crash because I'd left the band at that stage. I left twice, actually. I do everything twice. If I had to take something, I'll take two. I don't take one. I take two. Yeah, so, and they had guitarists. Oh, that was a funny one. I wasn't there for it. They had a guitarist join when I left first time, I think, and they wound up leaving him on the side in the town on the side of the road and drove off without him.
I remember that we had the guitar player who we had hired from somewhere in the North Island, and we were sitting in the front, some of us, some in the back, and had the gear in the middle, and we realised that we must have left him on the side of the road with his pants down doing a whizzer on the side of the road, and wasn't for 2 hours towards the gig that we realised that he was not there and that he didn't want to come back. Funny, too funny.
And he was quite annoyed with that, yeah. And,
oh yeah, the truck crash, yeah. So the library service bus. So what we would do is we would always have someone, whoever was driving, we would always have someone in riding shotgun with them to keep them awake. And the gear was packed right hard up against the cab. And then behind the gear, at the back of the bus, there was another door. And there was a bean bags and cushions and squabs, and we would sleep there and travel there. And we were driving to Gisborne to do a gig from Hamilton, I think, and that road is like really windy and forests and you know, like it's just hills, and it's like beautiful, but this was dark, this was at night, so we're travelling to get to this gig, and we didn't have to play that night of course, but there was a gig the next night, and we must have got late away from Hamilton or something, and I was riding shotgun in the front and Super Roadie was driving, and we weren't going that fast because we'd come to the top of the Opie Hill, which is a huge hill going down, and we went over the top, and the boys were all in the back probably snoozing, and or I think we'd been and got some takeaways, so there was milkshakes and shit like that. Anyway, when they were heading down the other side of the hill, and just as we got over the hill, he turned to me and he said, "I got no brakes." And he was going like that, and I said, "What?" And he said, "I got no brakes." And I said, use the gears, you know. And he was going through the gears, and I slammed on the handbrake, and there was nothing. And of course, the guys in the back knew nothing. We were just normal. So we started to get a bit of momentum. I probably could have stepped out at that stage. It was like, you know, not going that fast. But that would have been rude to do that. So I just put my feet up on the dash because I knew there was going to be an accident at the bottom, and you couldn't communicate to the guys because the gear was stacked up there. It was no communication. You couldn't talk, and they would have been just relaxing. And just, I don't know, a third of the way down, a sign comes up, passes us, which shows the bottom of the hill. And what it is, it's a hard right-hand turn. But there's a gentle right-hand lane, which is, you know, the oncoming traffic, and it's a gentle curve, and then just between the lane, the left hand, because you keep to the left, is kind of an island with rocks and shit, you know, sort of a, it was split, an island, and a park over on the left. So we looked at it, and Chris said, let's take the right-hand lane, and it was a blind corner, and I went, what, it hit a logging truck? You know, like, there'll be nowhere to go. No, let's take the left. And he said, we'll roll it. And we're arguing. And I said, we're not going to take the right hand, mate. We're not going to take the right hand. I'm not having a head on. And he said, all right. So, you know, we were getting up real fast now. We you know, you got no brakes. And you've loaded heavy. And it was a long hill. So we discussed what we would do and that. And you know, there wasn't a lot of time. So as we went round the corner on the hard left-hand side, the whole bus went over on two wheels. So now we're like this, and I'm down here and I'm looking up, and he's up there, but we're not rolling. You know, and I thought, why aren't we rolling? And the guys in the back by now would have known. You know, just milkshakes probably going everywhere. And I looked out. And along the park was a pipe rail fence, like a rail fence, just separating, because we were off the road now, we were in the grass, because we'd gone wide of the, but we'd come up against this rail fence. So as I looked down, and he's still up here, there's showers of sparks, because it's metal on metal, going along, we're scraping along this rail. I think we absolutely shagged the rail and the side of the bus. And I looked down and saw, and I thought, oh, that looks interesting. It was spectacular. And feet are still up there. And at the end of that pipe fence was a huge, apparently we found out later, historic tree. And it was massive. And I think what happened is we came down, because we didn't roll, we came down onto four wheels just at that precise moment as we reached the tree. And boom, into the tree. And I think Chris just swerved to try and miss the tree, but caught my side. And, you know, well, you know, we came to a sudden halt. And the gear moved a wee bit, but not much. It was quite surprising. And I had been drinking. I don't think Chris was drinking, but I spilt piss everywhere. And there was like, I was just remember thinking, shit, I got to get rid of these bottles. And so I was grabbing the bottles and I ducked out the truck. Anyway, in the back, we used to have like overhead lockers on a plane. We had all the lighting towers and the mic stands hanging up high. Well, they had really heavy bases on them. They all came down and onto the guys, and you know, they were quite bruised. No, there was no major damage to anybody really. Well, Chris and I had nothing. They were worst off in the back. But the guys in the back thought we were sandwiched up against the tree. They had imagined that we were over because it came to such a halt. And the gear, they thought we were squashed. So Neil, he couldn't get out the door, the back door, so he was climbing over the gear yelling. But I wasn't there. I was running the booze down to the rubbish bin in the park, because I thought, well, there's going to be someone here soon. And anyway, finally the guys got out and were relieved to see that we were okay. But the problem started there because that's Chris Simmons, super roadie. He decided to share the knowledge at that particular time that he didn't in fact have a heavy traffic licence. And we went, what? But if we'd taken the right hand lane, it would have gone easy. But we still had no brakes, and we probably would have continued on down the road and had an accident somewhere else. So at least where we had the accident, there was actually just down from the park, there was motels. So we booked in. We stayed there. I mean, And I think we had some beers left over, and I think we stayed there and had quite a good night, as it turned out, and laughed about it. But, you know, yeah. Laugh!
We can fuck around with.
That'll do
That'll do for now. Do you want to have a go at it, or you just want to?
Well, I'll do this.
You like to pick a good one or something like that. You know, I'm just thinking about one about myself.
Do you remember that'll be the leathers?
Yeah, I do remember that'll be the leathers. Although, you know, I'm reluctant to sort of to discuss that at this particular time. I mean, you know, a question like that begs more than a simple yes or no answer or some no dispute around it. And you know, without trying to sound like a politician or anything like that, about you know. There's ways and means and that of apropos of an answer to your most indigenous question. Do I remember the leathers? I remember the leathers. Yes. It wasn't a good memory. I remember waking up in the morning and going, well, you know, I don't think there'll be much happened there. So yeah.
Your weakness got better of you and they got you, but yeah, some of them followed us around. Yeah, every town had a bunch of them. Yeah.
Well, they did, didn't they?
They did. I remember taking Neil Sullivan to the doctor.
Please elaborate.
Oh, he was in agony. Oh, yeah, we were laughing.
Vaguely. Pass.
Kavada and Napier. Yeah.
Funny, she was a fabulous looking girl, but
There were these groupies that followed us around. Say no more. Well, we did these demos because we had Chris Cole as a manager. He bandied about these demos in Australia. May have even gone over there. And April Music, which was a subsidiary of CBS, they were real keen. And they actually came over too while we were playing in Napier. And he flew in there. Actually, I messed that up because he was supposed to fly into Auckland where I told him that we were going to be. And then he flew into Auckland and here I messed up and we were in Napier. So he had to get on this little plane.
it was John Anderson, wasn't it?
Yeah, John Anderson and came all the way to Napier. Just to talk to us. He wanted to meet us and said, no boys, get to Australia as soon as you can. We really like your songs. So, we, being the loudest band as we were in the country, were pretty much burning bridges behind us. There's a few places that decided they wouldn't have us back, so we said, hey, it's time, let's get on a plane and go to Sydney. So we're very excited. Neil Burns and I went over first for a recce to have a set up a flat, get a car, and then everybody else followed.
His enthusiasm, his organisational skills, and just the way that when he was on, he would get it done, or he would inspire you to get it done, and you know, and the thing in it. And well, he was telling himself he was no bloody check out the stories on the bass with him, but it didn't matter because he took what he had, moulded it to what he wanted, and that was enough. That was enough. He used that, and that was fine for us. That's what we needed. Yeah. His enthusiasm with it.
He'd carry us along, wouldn't he?
Yeah, if we had something to do and you're feeling a bit sort of, you go, well, come on, guys, you know, turkeys, let's get it going. We can get this rolling, you know, and we would. So yeah. But it wasn't in New Zealand. It was in Australia. When we were in Australia, we were doing a gig at this huge pub, Country Bay Hotel, Salinas, and we were playing with it was a church. Who had a pretty high-riding song at the time, and a band called Jimmy and the Boys, who also had a song in the charts at the time, doing pretty well. Written by Tim Finn, actually. So yeah, we were first on. There was the church, and then Jimmy and the Boys. And I started playing. We're playing away there, and that's all good. It's packed out. And I broke a string, the first song or something. So I handed it to the guys there. Proceeded to change the string, but he didn't have a bloody white gauge, so he wound up with this fence wire on it. So I handed that back to give me this other guitar that I'd never really bonded with. I used it at home, which was a Flying V guitar, and I put that on, and it just felt right. What it was? It just sat right, felt right. It's fucking rock and roll, and and I had a blind on the fucking gig. And you know, you can think about it and go, oh, are you sure? Or is it just your movement? But no, it wasn't. It was bloody good. And actually I purchased a similar model Flying V to that guitar just a while ago, a couple of months ago, purely because of that gig, the way the guitar set and felt.
Wow.
Yeah, so there you go.
Well, we're on the road with bands, but not so much Airstrike. But yeah, we were always meeting bands. Yep.
I think the Radiators did a lot of gigs with it.
The Radiators.
Yeah.
Did Airstrike, we did a Australian Crawl tour. Yeah. Did we do a Dragon with Airstrike?
We didn't do Dragon, no.
Okay, because we did later on. Canned Heat. Yeah. That was at the Astor in Bondi.
Yeah. Probably more so in Australia. There was a sort of a, I don't want to call it even friendly, just a sort of in-jokey type thing with other bands that we'd pass on the road. We had take to call them pet names for each band, and they gave us the same back as well, you know. I think they called us Earache. And what have you, but yeah.
What do we call him?
I think it was Shit Shack. The name was Steam Shack, I think. But once again, it was kind of, you know, everybody did it. Part of it was, yeah.
It must be, maybe it's an age thing. Maybe it's just that little, well, you know, still, I'll be obviously old enough to know what's going on. But I think I was just sort of, just kind of floating along with everything, you know what I mean? And just kind of a little bit numb. Look, I remember when we first came, not happy moments, but I remember when we first came to Sydney and we were living in the apartment in Annandale and it was middle of winter and Sydney was actually cold and I didn't have a blanket. I lay on the floor and there was condensation coming down the walls and I had a pillow with no pillow slip and I thought, you know, this is the pits.
We were working all the time, dates. We had to. I'm pretty sure, we could look up the book, but we did 20-something days, nights in a row. And that's when Neil Burns got sick with glandular fever because of that. I'm sure it was. Just working night after night. And not making that much money. Here we in New Zealand, we were making good money. Took the door. He got to Australia and the money was nothing. Hence why we all had to go out and get day jobs.
Yeah, because we had a rotten crew in that truck. All went on that.
All the prices went up and Australia had to have more.
It was all one-nighters.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't do that. Go to one pub and stay there for a week trip.
Live in the pub.
No.
And got paid a fraction.
We did a lot of recording. Did the single we had due to put out in New Zealand. That was filmed for Radio Pictures. There's 2 songs there. There is a group of songs that we recorded in Auckland also. And a lot of stuff in Australia. When we got to Australia, they gave us use of a rehearsal studio, international recording studio. So we would rehearse there and record there at the same time. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff recorded, of which I have very little. But I know Neil does. He has it all down there. Because in those days we had it all on cassette tape. It was only the other day when I was listening back to it, for songs for this gig, that the tape machine turned it into spaghetti. It was just, I just pulled it out of the tape machine, you know. I was like, wow, all this shit. No wonder they got CD. Well, not even that now. CDs are something you can just... Yeah, so there you go. A lot of recording. Yeah, no, yeah.
What about another one?
Oh, yeah, there was the one that we decided to go for a walk on the beach in Gisborne, you, Burns and myself. So we decided it would be a good idea to ingest some substances, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
And go for a walk on the beach on a sunny day. And that was all good. Things were going swimmingly, you know. And later on we decided, it was going a little bit too swimmingly. And I thought, well, there's a story going around that you can eat oranges and that kind of takes the edge off, you know what I mean? So what do? We go to a shop. This is once again Neil, you know, right, we'll get some. We need oranges, so we go and we get oranges, a bag of oranges. Sat down out on the footpath. This is a Sunday in Gisborne. There's nobody around. And we proceeded to eat these oranges. And we were just eating and feeling it. Went up a big pile of orange peels there, you know? And we had all those.
Did it work?
No, it didn't work. No. Fucking flat out of us. But we went round to Chris Simmons. He was staying with this girl. And so we bowled around to see him and the girl. And at some stage we seemed to be, maybe it wasn't her. We were in a sitting room watching a movie or something and chain smoking like buggers. And I remember you being in the garden with a broom, dancing away to some Led Zeppelin song that was on the stereo. Yeah. Yeah. And then we went back to the hotel, the pub we were staying in, and the lady came out there, like an old chef lady, And she goes, okay boys, just something simple tonight. Mental. And she brought out this, I bet it was bloody wonderful too. It looked, well, it didn't actually, it looked like a fucking pile of worms. Because, you know, with the mental state you're in, put it on the chase and put it, I couldn't even fucking come in. It just looked like I don't know what. So I bowed out of that one. Yeah.
It was in Australia, and we were supporting Australian crawl.
Yeah.
Australian crawl. So we're supporting Australian crawl.
Yeah, tell that one.
And most, when you're a support act, most bands would put the drummer in front of the riser, the drum riser. They wouldn't move their kit, so they had it set up, mic'd, it was set, and you were nobody, you know. So they would put us in front. But for some reason, these guys moved their kit off, and I had my kit on the riser. Fantastic. Their crowd absolutely packed. It was a big RSL. Their crowd, but they were quite liking us, and it had a real low ceiling, and the heat was intense up on that high riser. Like it was, and there was no fans. Maybe they had fans and didn't give me a fan. But in Australia, it was really hot, and we were doing like 75-minute sets. I think they were 75s. Yeah, they were 75s. You had to do long set, and I started feeling really, really ill. Heat stroke is what it was. There was nothing ingested to give me this. This was, you know, this was just a night normal, and about just towards the end of the set, I projectile vomited all over my kit, you know, and it just came out, and of course it wasn't too bad until, you know, I'm playing and I hit the drums, because, you know, then it became airborne again, and it looked spectacular because we had the white lights behind me, and you would have, you know, it'd be like midnight oil with the water on the kit, you know, it was just everywhere. But it was vomit. And so it was, you know, like I remember just the band, like, what the hell's wrong with Pete? You know, like, and it was just, I couldn't stop. And then I did finally stop, and then went off to the band room, and the Crawls roadies, man, they wanted to beat the shit. Because the monitors, the riser, you know, everything had diced carrots. Oh man, that was a good one. I loved that. I mean, it was good to laugh about it later anyway. Yeah, that was good.
Nonetheless, I thought they were all good songs, some of them great songs, and it's a pity really, because some of the songs that go around at the time are actually crap. So yeah, but that's not to sound bitter about it. Yeah.
Let's just run with this one.
You couldn't do it in this key.
He's on the phone to me. Saying, well, look, I've got this idea, you know, it's bagpipes. That's not a bad idea, but they can only play in E flat or B flat.
Yeah. That actually works quite well. It really needs bass too, you know. It's really,
Oh, hey,
yeah, that's right.